My name is Steve Maddox. I am here with a very distinguished panel today. As a company, we are trying to help the buyers and residents of Utah understand the real estate market more. So we have assembled this group of experts to help me tackle some very tough topics that is on the top of everybody's mind. Furthest on the right, dressed in his tuxedo, is Kyle Tucker. Maybe Kyle, you could take less than a minute and introduce yourself and how we have become acquainted.
I've had quite a history with EDGEhomes. I own a lot of property myself. I don't know, over 30 EDGEhomes doors. I've also worked with, I think, over 150 investors that have come through on the EDGEhome side, aside from the resale side of the market. A lot of designs, personally designed a ton of homes for clients, for myself, a lot of townhomes, a lot of condos. So over the years, I think it's been, I couldn't even do the math on how many units, but I've been in your office personally and through good times and bad and just meeting up on things. And it's been a great journey.
Thank you, Kyle. To your right, we have Austin, whose name comes across my desk often. We have not met in person, but perhaps you could give a little bio on yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So Austin Sigmiller with Kairos Real Estate NRE. Obviously, I'm a real estate agent, but I'm also an investor. I actually, like many people, started my investment portfolio with an Edge product that I've grown to love over the years, and I've felt that my clients have also fallen in love. But yeah, over time, I've built an investment portfolio, built a rental software company that helps underwrite investment properties. And so we are very plugged into the real estate space, whether it's people buying homes or investment properties.
Thank you. And to your right is Steve Perry. We have not met. We have crossed paths for years and years and years. So I am really excited to hear from you today as well. If you could tell us about yourself.
You bet. So I've been doing real estate for 25 years. I was Selling Board President 2 years ago. I am currently a NAR Board of Directors, a UAR Board of Directors, and I am the current Chairman for UAR Pro Standards Committee. I'm also the President and Principal Broker for Presidio Real Estate.
That's a lot of titles. Congratulations. And thanks for your service, because I know those don't come with a large salary, but come with a lot of responsibility. So thanks for the contribution. And I am the CEO, owner of EDGEhomes, so thank you for the plug. Today is not about EDGEhomes. Today is really about the state of the state. We, as an industry, are going to be faced with some changes. We are going to be faced with some options. We're going to be faced with some questions as to how to navigate the future. So I'm going to start with you, Steve, since you have the designation. NAR has just essentially settled a lawsuit with the Department of Justice. Maybe you could go into a little bit of what the settlement is, and maybe your thoughts and projections on how that is going to change how we approach business as a seller and as a buyer's representative.
The settlement's not accepted yet. A judge has to approve it in July, and so it may vary a little bit here and there. That's my disclaimer, right?
Yeah.
So what has been proposed is that the MLS is not allowed to put the BAC commissions on listings anymore. So there's no guaranteed commission for buyer's agents being listed on the MLS. You can put it anywhere else. You can put it on showing time. You can put it on your website. You can put it on all kinds of different areas and avenues except the MLS. You cannot put it on the MLS comments section either. And you cannot then, therefore, go create a new MLS and expect to be able to utilize it. That's against the settlement as well. It's only in that one location, so yes, it can still be offered. However, there are caveats to it, such as you cannot show a property. You can't even go take an agent to a model home until you have a buyer-broker agreement in place. Utah is one of 8 states in the whole country that already has that as a Utah regulation, and so we have the buyer-broker agreement. We're already ahead of the game. It will have to be tweaked a little bit, and the Forms Committee with UAR will be doing that. A buyer can ask the seller request for that to happen, and so we have a form for that already, and that will be tweaked a little bit as well, depending on the settlement. The seller can still offer the buyer's agent a commission. That's not a problem at all. And so the listing agreement already states that and has that special place that the buyer will get this. There are certain regulations to the buyer-broker agreement that will be in enforced, such as you cannot raise the commission once you've had an agreed upon price. On that document, you can't raise it any higher. And so it'll be set. And if the buyer then has to negotiate with the buyer's agent on what that commission will be, then that's going to have to take place. So I actually like that rule because it's actually is going to raise the bar in our industry, because agents should already be having these agreements in place before they go out and show houses, and a lot of agents don't do that. So this is actually going to force them to do what they should have been doing the whole time, is to have a legal binding contract with your client that states that you represent them. So there's that one. There's that piece of it. There's a whole bunch of other pieces, but as far as what's going on with the buyer, that's the biggest thing. As far as the seller can still negotiate that fee. The seller doesn't have to pay a buyer's agent's fee. Does it change? Will it change the settlement on how things happen? A little bit, but even the class action lawsuit, it was filed yesterday that the attorneys representing the class action lawsuit filed an $84 million claim as part of the money. So they're the ones getting rich, and they're probably the ones that prompted all this. The sellers themselves were told they'll probably get about $10 each that are in part of it. So it's just getting lawyers more money, and hopefully it'll help clean up our industry if that's what the DOJ thinks needs to happen. And so we'll make adjustments, and things will still, business will be just like usual. And it's not a time to panic at all, not a bit. We got through the Great Recession of 2008, and we'll get through this too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Steve. A great 35,000 foot view of what the DOJ is telling us that we need to do as an industry. I received my real estate license in '99 at the feet of Arnold Stringham while he was still teaching.
That's painful.
And have been very proud of the industry as a whole and the contribution to home ownership, and parlayed into the dream that I always had, which is providing housing. So consequently, I have offered very loud and very proud that we support the Utah Board of Realtors, and we have offered a 3% because I believe in the industry as a whole. So Austin, fast forward to you. My concern, I offer 3%, and somehow we have pressured great buyers agents to go underground because they can make more money working at a grocery store than they can in this industry, where they have diligently represented buyers that are not in the industry to make sure that paperwork is not just done correctly, but all of the nuances of real estate and the transaction on the largest item that they will buy in their lifetime. And we're now being told that that is questionable as to whether that's needed or not, which I find humorous. So Austin, now fast forward to if the court ratifies the decision, you on the streets now. How do you manage? How do you navigate? And what does your July 15th look like of this year if, in fact, what Steve has talked about is enacted?
It would be a lie for me to say that there's not a concern around how this is going to be dealt with and rolled out in the foreseeable future. And I think that collectively that we talk about who will exist in the industry once all of this fizzles out. I think you'll have a lot of people that have been in the business a long time, that have participated in a lot of transactions and have a lot of experience, will not have a difficult time getting a foothold and rolling with the changes, whereas those trying to start building a career as a broker and make a name for themselves, I think are going to have much more of a difficult time. I think the concern lies with, as you mentioned, this is the biggest purchase that people will make. And almost every single time that they are making a purchase, it's a form of an upgrade, and it's bigger than the last one. And requires, in a lot of cases, representation, somebody who specializes in that topic. There will probably be a rift, at least in my opinion, on sellers who understand the importance of somebody having a fiduciary to represent them in their best interest and take care of them. Whereas you may see sellers who intrinsically motivate buyers to not seek the counsel and the fiduciary responsibility of somebody who knows what they're doing to help them navigate that. Even just this last week, from a builder that I won't name, I've got a client who's on the brink of potentially a lawsuit with that builder due to some disagreements in the contractual process. And they just said to me the other day, just overwhelmed, and his wife is actually 3 weeks postpartum, and they're just kind of at the point of breakdown, and they say, man, I do not know what I would have done if I didn't have a fiduciary. That scenario may not always be there, but it's like when somebody shows up in court, if they don't have representation, that the court will provide it to them. It's the exact same thing. This is one of the biggest decisions that people will make in their life, and I guess that's why I can't stress the importance of how the industry deals with this change going forward.
Yeah, thank you. Kyle, we saved you for last. Why do you agree with the Department of Justice? Now, I'm making the assumption that you do, but I know you don't. So maybe you could represent the advocates of this is going to reduce the price of real estate. I am magically going to say to my marketing department, let's drop this by 3%. I'm going to put that on a billboard, and pretty soon the housing affordability crisis that we are all confronted with daily magically disappears because we're no longer having outside agents. So help me support that argument, Kyle.
I don't know what to say to support the argument. What I will say, though, is, if we were to take an angle on why it does make sense, I do think there is a conversation to be had around more active conversation regarding the commissions and what that looks like. With what's been proposed and whatnot, there's just been a lot of assumptions throughout history, and that 6% is kind of the rule of thumb. The 3 and the 3 is kind of what's been done for a very long time. I do think it brings a more prevalent conversation around that. And I've said this for a long time, and for those that have worked with agents out there and maybe listening, there's that type of agent that does some paperwork and opens a door. And I've always talked about, I think those agents should make 1%. And then there's those agents that are doing far, far more for their client that should be being paid 5, 6, 7%. It's unfortunate that it's always been lumped together at 3 historically. We move into a place from a commission standpoint where that conversation is going to be a lot more relevant, and those that provide true value to their clients will be able to have those conversations up front and say, this is what our shop, this is what our firm, this is whatever, however they represent themselves, this is our fee, and this is what that includes. I think my team and others have talked about opportunity it brings into market, which I'm really excited about. Ultimately being able to structure kind of unique commission programs, or, if I do X amount over time with your guys' firm, because I work with a lot of investors, could there be some sort of incentive, or actually that this is weird, back on your comment on it could drop the price of the market. I don't think it will. I think it opens the door for individuals to potentially even go to their buyer's agent or call up a bigger buyer's agent, someone who's more reputable, has more position in the marketplace, and say, hey, I'm willing to pay you more than 3%. I'll pay you 4, I'll pay you 5. So I can get to the top of your list and I can have you represent me. I think that's what a smart consumer would do. Unfortunately, I do think on the low performing end of the marketplace, we will lose an immense amount of agents from the marketplace. It's something that is sad to say. I'm not looking forward to the stories that'll be on the internet, but I do think if there's someone who's less mature at this point in time, to either start preparing for a transitioning career or find somebody to go under their wing and find a mentor, find a team, be with someone, and then, learn and grow together. Because I think the market I think agents and representation will become better over the next following years.
Did you just say gird up your loins? What does that mean?
Didn't say gird up your loins.
Okay. Let's have some fun, because this is intense, rather discouraging items regarding the industry. But let's talk about why we're in the industry. And that is because it is a vibrant, fun place to be, to watch a family walk into their home for the first time, Christmas the first time, celebratory events within homes, tragedies within homes, and the things that kind of connect us with the people. As you know, the governor is going to stomp out housing affordability crisis. It's going to go away. That's part of his campaign. That's part of his pledge. He has supported millions of dollars. He's hired a czar to drop the pricing or drop the cost of housing affordability. We are the third most expensive state in the nation. which is fantastic to be in that distinguished category. And we have Jerome Powell that has taken upon himself to jump off a high-rise building to stomp out housing costs. From my perspective as a builder, every one of those items have been ineffective, and the buyer pool seems to be increasing, and the amount of interest in Utah seems to be increasing. And so this little blip that we had of, is this a good time to buy or is this a bad time to buy? We'll start opposite direction, Kyle, with you saying, as a 56-year-old individual, I have seen 08, I've seen 23, I've seen COVID, which was supposed to shut down the nation, and here we are. Here we are, lots of construction trucks going by, lots of construction happening. You guys don't look like you are struggling to find buyers today. You're probably struggling to find product because nobody's reselling their homes because their interest rate is 3%. What does it feel like? What does it look like out there for the buyer today? And you representing them, finding them the best option they have.
Yeah, so the direct question is, what's it like? What's it feel like for the buyer out there? It's different than it used to be. It's different than it's ever been. Traditionally someone who's worked with a lot of investors over the years. And when I say investor, both someone who's maybe out of state investing in Utah, also what I call the conscious buyer. So someone who wants to buy a primary residence, but also is aware of maybe they want to put in an ADU or do something to kind of subsidize
Accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, mother-in-law apartment, some call it, an additional apartment space in the home. So it used to be that, you could kind of grab units or buy units and the math, we say the math, it worked. Whereas today, that's not the case anymore. So for buyers to find product that either can make sense for their personal lives financially or for their investment portfolio, we're having to get creative. We're having to do room-to-room rental situations. We're having to do upstairs, downstairs units. We're having to do seller financing deals. And I'll say this year alone, I think myself and my little team that we've got, we're at 17 or 18 under contract so far, and the market's alive. I did 5 transactions the last 6 months of last year. Now we're already pacing on that, and people want to, I almost say they want to get ahead of what's coming, and so get ahead of the frenzy. And the frenzy, getting ahead of the frenzy has created a frenzy, I feel personally, and it's been really challenging because I cannot find. It's an immense amount of work trying to find stuff to plug them into that works for them, the list of requirements that they ask me for.
Wait or buy?
Buy.
Thank you. Austin. Same question, same approach, your experience.
So I don't think it's a secret that the profile of the buyer has changed drastically over the last 5 to 10 years. What this up and coming generation prioritize in terms of what drives their decision making has changed. Luxuries have become a little bit more common and maybe a little bit more acceptable, as the daunting task of home ownership has probably seemed a little bit pessimistic at obtaining. And so we spend a lot of time educating people on the net worth building attributes of real estate. I mean, at the end of the day, number one, it's a home. It's a place that we want to share those memories and grow our family. But number two, this is America. We use it to build wealth over time, and we have a limited supply of it. And so we educate people on what actually drives prices. And so to your question, buy or sell right now, or buy or wait, is that we spend time on 3 separate things. We call them the 3 I's: interest rates, inflation, inventory. Whatever those three things are doing, you can expect the exact opposite with prices. And you had mentioned that, back you've been through 08 and all these different eras of time on what happened with prices. And when we educate people on, okay, hey, what was inventory doing? What was interest rates doing? Inflation, all of those things at that certain period of time, prices have a relatively predictable outcome as opposed to what those things are doing. And so right now, we have inflation, it's starting to hit the bottom right now, 2-3%. We've got interest rates trending downwards and a couple of rate drops on the horizon. And inventory, compared to 2018, we have 500,000 more people here in the state, and we have half the homes that we had in 2018. That doesn't sound like a problem that's going to be fixing itself anytime soon, unless you guys can pump out 35,000 homes in the next 12 months for $300K. So I guess to answer your question, absolutely buy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Steve.
The way I look at things from a different lens than they look at is legislatively, we've had to look to make adjustments to allow lenders to be able to accept multifamilies purchasing a home. So instead of just immigrants doing it, now everybody should be able to do it legally and be able, because sometimes you're going to get 2 or 3 different brothers and sisters or cousins or friends.
Multi-generational family.
Absolutely, purchasing that home. And if that's what it takes, then that's what's going to happen. Legislatively, has already nationally been starting to be written for, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, I always mix them up, to be able to allow buyer's agent commission to be rolled into closing costs. Right. And so that's already on the horizon just because of the NAR stuff. So there's different things that are already being done that way. We did get passed through legislation last year and partially year before was to allow the cities to allow ADUs to come in, be part of their property and this kind of stuff. Now, of course, cities are always fighting us on this stuff because of parking or whatever. But then we were able to combat that with arguments of, look, I have 4 kids. They didn't have a problem parking, right? So we won in that battle. And so legislation's passed that cities have to allow ADUs to happen. So HOAs, however, are a different problem. They can still not allow things. So that's a different thing to be addressed. But yeah, it's going to happen that way. And it's not going to solve the crisis or anything. First-time home buyers who have been pushed out of the market are looking to purchase mobile homes. And mobile home or a townhome, it used to be townhomes was what first-time home buyers had to go to. Now they're in a different product, which a mobile home, if it's not on, as you know, concrete, it's not considered real property. It's a personal property. So we have to deal with how do we, as agents, even have to help them purchase something that we're not supposed to be helping them purchase, such as a mobile home. And so there's different challenges that we all have to face for even first-time home buyers. And so that's what the big push is now is let's get first-time home buyer affordability out there.
I have children that are between the ages of 18 and 30. The topic of conversation the last 6 months has been amongst their friends to me, which is my generation has stolen the wealth from America. Therefore, the millennials do not have the opportunities that my generation had. Therefore, we are in smaller homes on smaller lots. We're in townhomes, et cetera, et cetera. I have had a lot of reflective moments of the 25-year-old pickup truck that I drove and carpooled with my wife, and the basement mold-infested unit that I rented for years. And the expectations that I had at the age of 25 are different than my children have. 30 is different than what my children have. The amount of discretionary money that I spent on vacations, I was not buying Lulu, I was not buying Yeezys, I was not paying for a haircut for them or me. And there were a lot of things that generationally were different. And a lot of the money that I was able to generate through a thriving job at Macy's grocery store bagging groceries allowed me to have some housing. That has flipped dramatically, the income and the ability to provide a house. If you were talking to younger than you even, should we buy a home, should we not? Our parents tell us it's a bad time. The economy tells us it's a bad time. There's got to be a better time. We've got to be in a bubble. Utah's got to go back to where it was. We're going to wait. The cities have got to get wiser and not charge the fees that they are on impact fees. Jerome Powell's got to lower interest rates. What do you say to that, Kyle? Like, this has got to correct itself, right? I've got to be able to afford my mastercraft. I'm 25 years old. I've got a good IT job. I've got to be able to afford my third car garage because my dad has it. And you deal with investors, but you also deal with buyers. So let's talk to our fellow Utahns that are saying, I'm really tired of the apartment and I'm really tired of seeing my significant other because our kitchen's 3x3 and our bedroom's 4x4. And like, I want to change. I'm burnt out. how do you get ahead? What do we do? What do we do to plan?
Yeah, I think so. Last night I had a webinar that was nationwide, and we kind of talked a little bit about this subject. And
I feel like you're flexing, Kyle, but I really appreciate it.
This topic's really, really important.
It is.
And part of my mission, there's a twofold piece to my mission, but one is to help individuals grow their wealth and their assets so that they can, we talk about money not being important. It's just as important as oxygen, which if you kind of dig into that, there's a paradox there of if we walked around trying to breathe all the time, how much would we not do in life, right? So the question really becomes, if we're walking around as a country always thinking about money, are we really living? So my mission kind of goes twofold. One is being more responsible with your, everything you're doing, your assets. I showed people that know me know that I have X amount of whatever from an asset standpoint, but I said I went back from 2013 to 2020, I pulled up a sheet and showed it. And it literally had every dollar we made line item on an Excel spreadsheet. And it had columns of how I divided that dollar up. And it went some here, some here, some here. And there's 7 years of history on there. And
kind of old school budgeting.
Old school, very old school.
Spreadsheet, but old school.
Spreadsheet, and I made different bank accounts and I moved the money into the other accounts. Anyway, the conversation then turns onto okay, let's be responsible for what we have. And then part two, and I think there was some priming in the question around part two is, let's actually start to consider what it looks like to detach from what we think we need.
Okay.
This is a major topic that I'm talking about with a lot of my clients, because if I help people earn money and they just go spend it more, we're not going in any positive direction. So the question is can we spend less than what we bring in, and can we continue to increase what we bring in and create what I call the gap to further create a scenario where we can be happy, maybe happy is not even the right word, but be settled, be grounded with the life we have exactly as the way it is today. And we don't need all the different things you mentioned, the Lulus, the Yeezys, all the things, because really we don't. And somehow we've been convinced that we do. And so I don't buy the argument of there's a generation taking money. I think we have become, the younger generations have not had the opportunity to learn the disciplinary practices to be able to start to build the wealth that's necessary that bought their dad the third car garage. And they kind of want it on day one. And so let's kind of go old school. Let's go old school and learn how to budget and do the things so that someday we can go where it is that we want to go and do the things that we want to do.
Thank you. Great perspective. Austin.
This is a
loaded question.
Yes, yeah. This is an incredibly controversial topic, and actually, if you spend time on agent satire and humor on social media, is that this is a very frequent topic that's brought up. Is that I think people are throwing in the towel. They're saying that, like you mentioned, that the wealth has been stolen and this is impossible for me to obtain. Last year, I got the opportunity to participate in almost 60 buyer-represented transactions. And to get to those 60 buyer-represented transactions, I talked to thousands of people, literally thousands. And there is a very different profile that exists between those 60 people that made the move, that chose prioritizing generational wealth, their net worth, as opposed to luxuries. There's very different. It's how they spend their time, what they spend their money on, how much they work, their relationship. It governs everything, all of their decision making. And like you mentioned earlier, dictated a lot of decisions that you made early in your life. I feel the same as well. I'm still in my 20s, and I feel like I've made decisions differently, and I can see the results. What's come of that. And like I said, it's controversial because I think people find it easy to sit back and just disagree with that and say that the gap, advantage is the disadvantage is too great at this point. And I would just say I strongly disagree with that, because people that will spend time on prioritizing and understanding the importance of building wealth and taking care of their financial decisions properly, it'll pay off in the long term.
Thank you. Steve.
Well, I too am 56, and I have 6 children. I have 2 20-somethings living at home. That's because I built a Quincy Bee and they my my perspective is about education and teaching your children how to do this. So we'll use my daughter as an example. She's 30 now. She purchased a townhome in her 20s, and then she sold the townhome, made a little bit of money on it. She built an edge home, and I know I'm really sucking up here, but she built an edge home and then turned and flipped it in a couple years and made money, and then she bought another home. And so she has figured out that system because we taught her and educated all my children to do this type of thing. And so I think that it's not too late for people to still do that. They just have to be more patient. They have to live in that townhome longer for it to build equity. They have to live in their property, a little longer. They might have to fix it up, finish the basement. They might have to do these other things, but be patient, right? You can't do it as fast anymore because your equity's going to grow here in Utah. That's the one thing about it. But you've got to be able to make those moves and move up. And you mentioned that earlier. That is the American dream, is to be able to buy the next step, right? And it's all about teaching them while they're young how to manage their money and stuff. Because my 6 kids, the 4 that are married and giving me grandkids, I like them better, and they've all got houses and they've done this. Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah,
okay.
They know. They do know the grandkids are the best. So I tell them.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure this isn't just between us.
Yeah, no,
okay.
It's all good. They know I need more grandkids.
Okay, thank you. Great perspective. 6 kids, though, a little bit insane. And I have 6 kids. I'm going to ask you a question and I'm going to answer it to give you guys time. I want you to just give a nugget, a minute or 2 nugget that you guys have learned in your careers that you can pass on to those around you. I think at times the biggest struggle that I have professionally is imposter syndrome. And I sometimes wake up on a weekend when I'm not busy thinking, what if people really knew who I was at 15 years old? And the ideology that I had of I was destined to not have, and I was destined to have a wife that cried at Christmas because there wasn't enough money for gifts, and I was destined to not have enough money at the cash register, and I was destined to be labeled as the family that can't afford and the project. And now I'm sitting in a position that is different than that, and I wake up thinking, what if? And it scares me. That is the motivation. And when people ask what motivates me, it's fear of poverty. It's fear of not having. It's fear of not being able to provide for those that I'm responsible for, that really kind of just like I live with. And I would tell the next generation or my generation, it's not only plausible, but it's there. Slow down to speed up, and don't believe the haters in the world that tell you that because your last name is this, or because your ethnicity is this, or because your mother doesn't speak English, or because of any of the nuances that you have as a human being. Listen to the voice inside that says you're capable of being and doing whatever you want to do. And Kyle asked me a question a while ago about wealth. And the blessing of wealth has nothing to do with what I can buy, or what I can have, or what I can present to the world. It has to do with what I can do for others and the microphone that I have been given to be able to change lives. And as I drive into a community, there's no question that as I look out at these homes, nobody knows who I am, nor does it matter. But when I can turn off the motor to my car and listen to the laughter, and when I see that you're talking about, Steve, of just family and cohesion, it's real, it's tangible, and I want everybody in the entire United States to have that. And as I go to city council meetings, and I know there's 300 people behind me that say, I hate you as a developer, I hate you as a builder, I hate you as a real estate agent, I hate your whole industry. Go to hell. In my heart, I see your grandchildren that need the same opportunity that the 4 of us have had, which is to have home ownership and sit in our living room and to walk around in whatever the heck we want to walk around in and enjoy what we have and what we have provided, because within that becomes this self-esteem that we have as human beings. So I would say, remove the ceiling. Mark Bingham, a friend of mine, a mentor that owns Blue Diamond Capital, said, I don't care what you make, it's what ends up beneath the bottom line, which is what you are saying. Spend less, enjoy more. And I hate to say it, but my parents were damn right. when they said, save your money. And I didn't at the beginning, and it took a while. So we're going to start with you, Austin, on a nugget for those that might not be bored out of their minds that are still listening.
We've spent a little bit of time talking about maybe the level of discouragement that might exist in the industry. But I think one of the things that I want to bring up, and I guess is kind of bundled up in a form of optimism and advice, is that in this day and age, we have a significant advantage over, let's call it, your guys' generation. Technology, opportunities, access to information. I feel so fortunate in what I've had access to in just such a short period of time and what it's been able to do for me. And the upcoming generation is better at it. They're savvy at it. And they've been faced with a lot of trials the last couple of years. A pandemic, some of the highest volatility that we've ever seen in interest rates, wars, all kinds of things. That's experience, right? Those are things that can be used and weaponized towards building wealth, towards bettering the status and the how your family lives. And so all my regrets all exist around what I haven't done and what I never did do. And I know it may sound cliche, but you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Is that I choose to live my life that way, and that's the advice that I offer to my buyers and to anyone that I get the opportunity to work with is take those shots, because again, we do have a competitive advantage if we use it and recognize it.
Thank you. Steve, we're going to go to you next.
What comes to mind for me is that NIMBYism, which is not in my backyard attitude, has to go away. It absolutely does. As a people, I believe in service. I was in law enforcement for 11 years before I was in real estate, and it's all about taking care of each other. And unless people have that attitude of that we can do this together and that we should be doing this together, we're going to struggle as a community. When neighborhoods don't want the multifamily units to go in, that kind of stuff, they're not understanding how they're putting other people out, right? And so people need to actually walk in other people's shoes to see the suffering that other people have. And so for me, and when I was president of the board, it was all about promoting, and getting the cities to get rid of the attitude of NIMBYism. That's my big overview on it.
Thank you. Kyle.
I say this often, and those that have been around me, it's that you are enough. That every single one of us is enough. That everybody listening is enough. And somehow in this, I wouldn't even call our country, but somehow around the globe, we've created a culture of not enoughness and consumerism. And I don't think we need all the things we think we need. I've seen very happy people with very little. And that doesn't mean we can't strive to be better every day and be functional and productive and provide to neighborhoods, to economies, to others. But I think the sooner we, kind of shake the anxiety of trying to be liked and loved all of the time, we just start being, I think this planet really starts to transform. So to say it again, Steve, Austin, I was gonna say Michael, Austin Sigmuller, Austin, Steve, Austin, me, everybody in the room, you're enough. You don't need to be anything more than you are today.
I feel like I've learned from you guys. I think you're wise beyond anything that I thought was going to happen today. So as Kyle knows, I hate these gatherings, but I learn from them. And I always feel like I came here thinking you guys were a certain way because you and I have had conversations on the phone, and I feel like I've learned. And bottom line that I feel from you guys is let's lock arms and build society. And there are those amongst us that don't have a voice. I appreciate you, Steve, saying let's unite and stomp it out, because the reality is we are the fortunate ones and we do have the microphone. So I am proud to lock arms with you guys in navigating, creating situations that allow the next generation to feel good about themselves. So thank you for your contribution today.